Hi, this is Barbara Baylis here today, and we're going to talk about how to have an effective QAPI meeting. What we're going to cover today, we're going to understand how to effectively conduct and manage your QAPI meeting at your facility. You're going to learn some do's and don'ts of how to manage that meeting. Some of the key points we're going to talk about is how to plan ahead, how to have that agenda, how to be prepared, what kind of pre-work has to be done ahead of time, how the team members participate and make their decisions, how to hold people accountable. There are 4 key QAPI people in your facility that need to participate. That would be your administrator, who should be the chair of the committee, your facilitator, somebody who is a leader in quality in your facility, your reporting members, that would be quite a few people that are participating in the meeting, and your interdisciplinary team members who oversee patient care should be contributing to your QAPI meeting. Before the meeting, your administrator would approve your agenda and put the agenda together. I remember being in some jobs or even at a facility, and I get invited to a meeting and I wonder, well, what is this meeting about? What's the purpose of the meeting? What do I have to do in order to show up at the meeting? What do I got to bring? What do I got to read? And very often there is no agenda and people don't know what it is that they need to be prepared for. So for our QAPI meeting, we want to be sure that people know what the purpose of the meeting is, what they have to bring to the meeting, what's going to be discussed, what are the key points. You might have some standard things on your QAPI meeting, but then from quarter to quarter or month to month, you may have some additional items that you're focusing on, or you may have people rotating on what they're reporting on. So those things should be communicated to the members prior to the meeting. Your meeting facilitator, your QA, your quality lead person, the administrator doesn't have to do everything. They can delegate down to somebody who would then help prepare the agenda in detail, distribute it, make sure everybody has it, and make sure the room is ready, make sure that there's enough chairs around the table, make sure that, you know, if your group likes coffee and donuts, or, you know, you do it over your lunch, or you do it at the end of the day and you want a quiet place, or whatever the team's preference is, that the room is set up the way you want. You have markers, you have flip charts, you have extra paper and pencils, or whatever you guys need. That is, somebody should be facilitating getting that readiness done, and they'll also facilitate during the meeting. The reporting members, the people who are members of the committee, and those are usually department heads, members of the interdisciplinary team, they need to come prepared. They need to prepare their reports, they need to analyze stuff, and they need to be ready to talk about what needs to happen again. And an interdisciplinary team members, they might be working on a PIP, a performance improvement project, and they might be assigned to report off. So let's look at some of this in more detail. This is all in preparation before we even have a meeting. And during the meeting, the administrator is the leader of the building, and they run the meeting, they make decisions. We have our facilitator, and they're going to help with the keep the discussion moving, keep people participating. Maybe there's people who don't like to talk, don't like to contribute. The facilitator will say, Sally, what do you think? What do you think about that suggestion? Or what's your ideas for this? And so they want to keep it going. They want to keep keep people on time, keep on time to the agenda. And it's not hard and stop rules, like we have 15 minutes to talk about this item. If something needs to take more time, well, then the facilitator and the administrator, who's the chairperson of the meeting, need to decide, do we spend more time on this topic because it's so important, or do we table it, or do we put it in the parking lot, so that we can keep to our time schedule. Reporting members. Reporting members need to give concise reports. They need to entertain questions, and if they don't have answers, they need to come back or provide answers to the questions that are asked. And the team members, they need to ask tough questions. Everybody at the meeting is responsible for the success of the meeting. So even if the members are not reporting off on a work group, they're not reporting data, they're listening, they need to be asking tough questions. Sometimes when people give reports, you know, we need to have somebody speak up and say, well, what does that mean? And just not accept everything that is just reported out without really understanding it. So let's look at some meeting basics. And these things apply to all meetings, but particularly, you know, with our QA-PI meetings, sometimes when I'm at a facility and I walk into a room and they're having a QA-PI meeting, there might be, you know, 30 people in the room. And there's people sitting all around the edges on the windowsills, and they've got stacks and stacks of papers in front of them. And, you know, they end up reporting off all the stuff that is, all this data. Well, you know, I can look in the computer and I can go into their data warehouse and I can look at all those numbers. I don't need somebody to report the numbers off, and neither do they. But that is typically what happens a lot at our QA meetings. So before the meeting, as we talk about, we're going to plan it, we're going to do the purposes and the outcomes, and maybe at a particular meeting, you want to have a particular outcome. The team wants to put a performance improvement team in place and identify the members. Maybe you will already have a team in place, and one of the outcomes and purposes of the meeting is you want them to report back what the next step is. Part of the planning process, we went through some of that, identifying who the participants are, developing the agenda, setting up the room. And then starting, everybody should check in, everybody should review the agenda. There should be hard copies, or if they have them on electronic devices. Then they should review or set ground rules. And we're going to talk about that in more detail. We're going to talk about clarity of roles and what the roles are and what they do. We'll add a little more detail on that. And then as you walk through the agenda during the meeting, you cover one item at a time. The discussion is managed, everybody participates, you focus, and you have a good pace. And then at the end of the meeting, you close the meeting by summarizing your discussion. And this is where the facilitator helps facilitate all this. You review your action items. You solicit agenda items from for the next meeting. Review the time and place for the next meeting. Evaluate the meeting. And I'll show you a technique on how to evaluate the meeting. And thank your participants. Now, when the meeting is over, doesn't mean everything is done. There's still work that needs to be done. The meeting minutes need to be posted. Assignments need to be followed up on. There may be other notes and documentation. People need to complete their assignments. So that gives you an overview of having a successful meeting. Techniques for planning your effective meetings. Let's go through these in a little more detail. There are 4 key areas. It's your agenda, it's your ground rules, your meeting roles, and evaluating the meeting. The agenda. Again, having a plan. It's a plan for the meeting. It has your purpose. It has your topics. It has your estimated time frame. And these are estimates. So if everybody has, you know, 5 minutes or 6 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes to report off, it should say that's how much time they have. So that when I come to, when I have my agenda should be sent to me before the meeting. I should know ahead of time that I'm going to have 10 minutes and I'm expected to report on the infection control, give an analysis of the last 90 days of the infections, and come with a plan for addressing the issues. So that should be stated on the agenda so that I come prepared and that I'm the lead person on that topic and I've got 10 minutes for that topic or whatever. So using the agenda, we also use the agenda to develop prior to the meeting and distributed. And I can remember, as I said, when I'm was in a new job many years ago, I got an invite to a meeting, and I asked one of the administrative people, I said, what is this meeting, and what is the purpose of the meeting, and what do I need to do before I get to the meeting? What do I need to bring? And the response was, when she checked it out, it was, no, just show up, just be there. I said, well, that doesn't help me. I, like to be more prepared. I like to, that's not a good use of people's time when people just show up and don't really have a purpose or are not prepared. The agenda should also be reviewed at the start of the meeting. Maybe from the time it was distributed to the time of the meeting, something has changed. Maybe there's an issue on the agenda that should be tabled. Somebody say, well, you know, Dr. So-and-so is not here, we better table that item. Or we are waiting for some more reports from our home office, so we'll have to table that item, or whatever. So there might be some changes in the agenda, or maybe something new happened and you want to carve out 15 minutes from some agenda item and allow a new topic to be added. So that's what the team does that together. And here's just a sample of an agenda. It has the date, it has the time, it has the place, it has the purpose. You can see it has time frames, it has topics, it says who's going to do what, and it has the outcome. They're going to agree on the agenda. They're going to establish something. They're going to understand something. Maybe they're going to report on something or plan something. And the methods on this example are that they're reviewing something, or they're having a report, or maybe they're going to have a work session and do some brainstorming. That would also be on the agenda. Maybe they need to review the top reasons why patients are having falls, and maybe they need to do some brainstorming, or maybe they need to do a root cause analysis. And if those are terms and processes that you're not familiar with, this series is going to have some education to introduce you to those and teach you how to use those techniques and those methods for your meetings. So let's look at the next one is the ground rules, setting ground rules. Every team should establish ground rules, and every facility, if you do this on a regular basis, eventually you're going to have a piece of paper, a flip chart paper that you're going to put on the wall at every meeting, and maybe eventually have framed and say, these are our ground rules at our facility. This is how we run meetings. These, the ground rules, they really help manage behavior, and they tell members of the team what's acceptable behavior and what behavior is not acceptable. And it tells members how your meetings are run and what the expectations are. So, for example, one of your ground rules might be to start on time, or everybody reports on time. Everybody completes their assignments. There's no sidebars. Everybody respects the person who's presenting. Or maybe we always have food at our meeting. Whatever your ground rule that works for your facility so that you are managing the behavior. Now, if there's behavior that is really annoying at your meeting, make sure you make a ground rule. Maybe it's people who leave early. Everybody who comes to the meeting, you know, stays until the end of the meeting, and we finish on time, we start on time. So it's the team members that will decide what the ground rules are and how the meeting's to be run and what is acceptable. And they can might vary from different meetings, but generally, after a while, it will become probably your standard set of ground rules. So the team, you know, by doing this, they have agreement about what's acceptable for group behavior and individual behavior. And it helps to keep down distractions. It helps members to be focused. So maybe you have a ground rule that this, don't bring cell phones to the meeting, or put them on vibrate, or you know, during the meeting, you don't leave the meeting. And I got a good rule for that, a technique I'll share with you in a little bit. So here's some sample ground rules. Start and end the meetings on time. One person speaks at a time. Turn off your cell phones. Here's a few more on the next slide, and you can have ground rules on any of those topics and make them as detailed as you want to reflect the personality and the behaviors of the group. Sometimes, you know, you people need reminders of confidentiality and what stays in the meeting, stays in the meeting. All righty, so let's talk about the roles that, you know, people show up, and we really need to have the adults in the room, have people behave like adults and take responsibility and have responsibility for having an effective meeting. And it takes everybody as responsible for an effective meeting. And we want the meeting to be harmonious and to run really well. So we're going to assign meeting roles because that clarifies and assigns responsibility. And the roles hold the members accountable and ensure that your meeting is effective. The roles that are really helpful is to have the facilitator, have a note taker and a scribe, and a timekeeper. And you might hear some other similar words, and it's not the words that are important, it's the behaviors that the leaders and the people who are running the meeting take, and the members. So the facilitator's key responsibility, they're going to open the meeting, review the agenda, they're going to make sure that somebody is taking notes and keeping track of time. So they're going to ask for a volunteer to be a note taker. I usually, the person that ends up sitting closest to the flip chart board, that's the person I'll usually ask to be a note taker or a scribe, whatever term you want to use. I ask somebody to keep track of the time and give us a notice when our time is almost up on a particular agenda item. And the facilitator will go through the agenda item one item at a time. Their job is to keep everybody focused, to have a good, steady pace, to start facilitating discussion and getting people to participate. And sometimes we have people who just talk too much and dominate the meeting, and that's all we hear is that one person's voice, and everybody else keeps quiet because they may be intimidated. It's the facilitator's responsibility to have that person pause and maybe listen and get some other people to speak and have the other team members speak up. And also the facilitator, when the team has to make a decision, the facilitator should have some ideas and some experience on how to lead the team in making a decision. One way of doing it is by doing a multi-voting. And again, this series will have some education on how to do a multi-voting during a meeting, how to rank order. Maybe you have a list of 10 things and you start off multi-voting and you get it down to 5, and then you got to rank them, and then that's another technique. So a facilitator, when they see the opportunity for that, they would get the team to follow the procedure, the process of doing those techniques and those methods. Or maybe there's a lot of data and a lot of information, and people are not able to get to see what the root cause of an issue is or what the contributing factors are, and the facilitator should be able to help the team do maybe a fishbone diagram to be able to organize the information and the ideas from the team. So the facilitator also helps the team evaluate the meeting, and I will give you some suggestions on how to do that in a little bit here, and also to gather ideas for the next meeting agenda. Sometimes things come up during the meeting and they're not appropriate for the agenda, they're not on there, and you don't have the time to cover them. So one technique is to put them on in what we call the parking lot, and that's a flip chart paper on the wall. It's called parking lot, and we put items in there so that we can come back to them at another time. And very often at the end of the meeting, when you're planning your next meeting, all you have to do is look at that parking lot and you know you've got your 3 agenda items right there. And then the facilitator is responsible for closing the meeting with the group. Now the timekeeper is responsible to move the team along by keeping track of time. They are responsible to alert the team when the time allowed for an item is almost up. This is when the team can then decide as a group whether they're going to continue the discussion or whether they're going to cut it short. They may say, you know, we're so close to making a decision here or figuring this stuff out, let's take another 5 minutes and we'll shorten up, you know, something else, or we'll stay 5 minutes longer. Or, you know, this is really very, very big. This is like world hunger. We need to schedule another meeting just for this topic, and then the team would decide that. The important thing is that the time is managed by the team, and they use their time well. Note taker or the scribe or the recorder, those are different names. They serve as the historian for the team. They record any key points that come up during the meeting. They might start making lists. They should keep track of all the actions. If there is an assignment or somebody needs to do something, you know, they should capture that. Now, some people have both a note taker that keeps notes like in and will have a written report, and they're writing notes, or they're doing it on their computer or a tablet or something. And then they also have a recorder. I call them a recorder, and then they post things up on the wall. So we're going to talk about both of those. And whether you have one or two is up to you, whether you have a note taker and somebody who does the up on the wall, that's up to you. But what you need to do is make sure you have a system of saving the key important things, and that the key important information is distributed or posted, and that you have a summary. You're keeping track of your minutes. So the scribe, so if you're using two people, one called the note taker and then the scribe, they put the ideas on the flip chart paper, and so that people can see some of the key points, the key decisions. I like to, on the flip chart paper, I like to have the scribe record who's going to do what by when, so that, you know, we can look up there and it's sort of like, wow, you know, in front of the whole group, I'm responsible to get that done, and I write it down in my to-do list. So the person who is the scribe needs to capture the ideas. They need to write legibly and large. Spelling doesn't count. They need to check with the team members that the content of what they said is accurate. There's nothing more annoying that a team member makes a suggestion or an idea, and then the scribe sort of edits or reuses different words because they think it will sound better. That's very annoying to the person that threw out the idea or said it. They feel like what they said was not accepted fully, and so use the exact words to check back with the person to make sure that the content is what they meant. And then I mentioned about topics or ideas, issues that are not directly related to your agenda topics and that you don't have time to deal with at that time. Put it on, have the scribe put it on a flip chart paper that says parking lot. And those are items that you'll capture again. So here's the summary of some 10 techniques for running the meeting. This is during the meeting, how to run it. You make sure everybody knows each other. Now, many people work together every day, and they know each other every day, and that's fine. But sometimes you have a new employee, or you have a guest, or something like that. Make sure that they feel welcome and they're introduced. Agree on the agenda. You'll have a hard copy. People will get it ahead of time. Make sure there's no changes. Agree on your ground rules. Stay on track. Watch the time. People should summarize what they hear. The facilitator will encourage the participation. For administrators and directors of nursing, I encourage you to use the power of your position very wisely, that your people will be watching you and listening to you. And if you say something about, well, falls as a result of thus and so, and I think so-and-so needs to do thus and so, your team is going to pick up on that. And right or wrong, you know, if you do that, then maybe you've missed an opportunity to hear what the staff really has to say about the topic. So you really want to not always put your ideas and your position out there, and that you want to encourage so that you can learn from your staff. And when you need to be the decision maker, or you need to be the tiebreaker, or you need to be the one to, you know, be the voice to go to the home office and get some resources, you know, that's when you need to use your position and step it up. But let your staff learn to be more self-directed and let their voice be heard. The 100-mile rule, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about don't beat a dead horse. So there's some other techniques, and we did talk about the parking lot. So the 100-mile rule, I wonder how many of you know what the 100-mile rule is. Well, this is what it is. Once the meeting begins, everyone is expected to give it their full attention. So nobody should be called from the meeting unless it is so important that the interruption would occur even if the meeting was 100 miles away from the workplace. You know, it's something that is so annoying that many people do address in their ground rules. And when I do ground rules, we just call it the 100-mile rule, and then we all know what this means. But sometimes you'll see, you know, that no interruptions or, you know, don't leave the meeting early. Those are things getting at what this behavior is and what this problem is, that people, they have their cell phone ring, and so they grab it and then they have to leave the meeting and they step outside. And they may even do that more than once, or they come to the meeting and they're watching their watch or checking the time on their cell phone, and I got to go. I got another meeting. I got to get out of here. And that's not productive. So everybody can turn their cell phone off, can give for an hour for the QAPI meeting, can give it their full attention and not let something else interrupt them unless it meets the 100-mile rule. The facility will be so much more productive, and everybody will have a sense of accomplishment when they're able to do that and give the meeting this focus. So don't beat a dead horse. There is many times a topic that sometimes the majority of the team, they reach a decision, maybe they even vote on it. And remember, consensus is not 100%. Consensus is 80%. We don't all get 100% in this life. If we can get 80%, we're doing really well. So if the team has reached a conclusion, yeah, we're going to do thus and so, or we're going to get it done by this time, or we're going to change something, you know, if the person that's just not getting it and goes on and on and on, that's what we call, you know, don't beat a dead horse. So this is just a little stuffed horse that I've used at my meetings for many years, and even brought them to AHCA meetings, like the quality and the clinical committee. Just it helps manage things and remind people we've made a decision, we're moving forward, and we feel it's, you know, the group is ready to move. So let's not beat a dead horse. Evaluate every meeting. You know, when we have a meeting, at the end of the meeting, we want to know what we did well, because we want to be able to repeat that. We want to be able to improve the things that didn't go well. We want to know, you know, was the pace good? Was tone good? Did we stay on topic? What are some of the things we can do differently? And we should incorporate the meeting evaluation into your next meeting, and it helps make it better. So if one thing that we didn't do well was we didn't stay on topic, then maybe next time we need to use the parking lot more, or maybe we didn't have enough time, so maybe next time we put less agenda items on the agenda, or we allow more time for the meeting. We try to adjust what needs to be approved for the meeting, and we incorporate it into our next meeting. Now, when the QAPI meeting is completed, the work is not done. There's still work that needs to be completed. Still more work. The administrator needs to communicate QAPI activities to all staff. As you all know, during a survey, the surveyor is going to interview staff and ask them if they know about the QAPI committee and how they can get suggestions to the QAPI committee, and if they have an idea to improve things, and who would they go talk to, who are the members. So you want to be real good about communicating and letting staff know these are the quality committees, these are the topics we talked about, these are some of the things we're going to be planning. We're going to do a new fall initiative starting on one station, or we're working on improving our dining services, and we're going to start on this station on this shift or whatever. So you want to communicate that, and so that staff have a clear understanding. And you may also be having some PIPs, which we'll talk about in a minute, and staff need to know progress on those as well. The administrator needs to make sure that support and resources are provided. So what does that mean? That means if, you know, for the meeting, needs to make sure that people are freed up to be able to come and participate in the meeting, that they have the information and the reports and the data that they need in order to make decisions. needs, you know, that we got flip chart papers, we got markers, we have what we need to be able to run the meeting, and we've, you know, cleared everybody's schedule. We don't have competing priorities. That's the administrator's job. As I said, the facilitator, your quality lead, they'll, after the meeting, they're going to, again, prepare meeting minutes and distribute them for the next meeting coming up, and they're going to use the information from the previous meeting. They're going to help the PIPs, the Performance Improvement Project teams. These are the groups of staff people that are working on these improvement initiatives. And again, through this series, we'll have some education and training on how to create PIPs and how to utilize PIPs. And teaching them these meeting skills will be very valuable as well. So the facilitator will be responsible to do some of that. The reporting members will be responsible for monitoring their data and acting on it, and then all of the members are responsible for participating in their PIPs, their Performance Improvement Project teams, or if they're not on it, if they have staff that are participating in these PIPs, they need to make sure the staff member is allowed to have the time to attend and participate. So let's summarize what we've had here. Going to have an effective QAPI meeting. We talked about what happens in the planning phase and getting the setting the agenda and reviewing the data ahead of time, and the value of having ground rules and how those ground rules will help manage the behaviors. Having roles, having a facilitator, timekeeper, somebody taking notes, and I call all of that stuff that we put on the flip chart paper around the room is our group memory. Somebody needs to capture that. And also using a technique called parking lot to capture all the follow-up items, things that we're not able to get to during a particular meeting. Using the 100-mile rule, don't beat a dead horse, and then evaluating your meeting so that you can improve the next meeting and then following up on all of your action items. So does your meeting look like this? This is where, you know, people come in late, they have their cell phone on, they're talking to their neighbor, they're not paying attention, they're not prepared, they didn't prepare a summary. This is, if you're experiencing meetings like this, then you need to apply the techniques and ideas presented in this little webinar so that your QAPI meeting, you look like this, that you're all in formation and you're all following your leader and you're all headed in the right way. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, you'll be able to reach out to HCA staff, and we'll be able to provide you the support that you need. Thank you. Are we done?
Yeah, I'm just stopping the recording.
Okay.